Wake up, Adam, they are getting close.
All right, what is going on, guys? It's Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. First on the docket, we have President Biden makes first public comments on the Wagner revolt in Russia. We had nothing to do with it. First of all, it's crazy that he even has to answer something like that, let alone say that he's not involved. It says that President JB addressed the Wagner Group's revolt against Russian President Putin regime for the first time on Monday, saying that the top priority for the U.S. and NATO was to establish that they had, quote, nothing to do with it. President JB says that he asked for an hour-by-hour update on the situation throughout the weekend, in addition to holding virtual meetings with key allies. That, of course, we talked about how Blinken and the G7 and the EU were all meeting, and getting updates on the crisis. And it says he clarified that the U.S. is still assessing the fallout from the weekend's events and went on to affirm that the U.S. is continuing its full support for UKR. It says that they agreed with me that we had to make sure we gave Putin no excuse to blame this on the West, to blame this on NATO. We made clear that we were not involved. We had nothing to do with it. This was part of a struggle within the Russian system. It says, I also talked at length with President Volodymyr Zelensky of UKR. We'll be keeping in contact with him and maybe speaking to him later today. President JB continued, I told him that no matter what happened in Russia, we, the United States, will continue to support their defense and its sovereignty and its territorial integrity. Essentially, or at least we will as the taxpayers. But again, this is them saying directly that they had nothing to do with it. Why they are saying this? Well, pretty much nobody believes exactly what happened there, and everybody is questioning what is happening. It doesn't matter if it's mainstream or alternative. Pretty much nobody believes the official narrative that he literally took a couple battalions, said that he was going to be taking back Russia, taking out Shogu, walking through the city, and everybody's cheering them on like, yeah, we hate Putin. Nobody believes that as far as, and that he just said, Lukashenko called me, he's an old buddy. Forget about the whole treason thing I just did, and, let's just drop all of the charges and let you move into his house and sleep on his couch. It doesn't make any sense. Again, it is something that is absolutely 4D chess. And I tweeted earlier kind of explaining what I mean by 4D chess, and I don't know what everybody else does. But when they plan, they don't just plan the event. They think tank this stuff out. So if there's an event that happens, they will think about the reaction. How will people react? And then they think, well, how will people react to the reaction? And how will the reaction go over to the reaction and how it will happen? So they think multiple steps ahead. That's why, again, in chess, you think multiple moves ahead. And what we don't realize is that we questioning this and being completely confused, that was probably thought about. And of course, us getting mad and being suspicious, I think is part of it too. Why would they purposely make things look so shady that nobody believes what is going on? That's my question. Again, it's not just this, it's the sub story that they basically knew about after an hour and a half. Why did they keep that going for 4 days? Xi visits France, and France is so wants to be so obvious that right after Xi leaves, we want to distance ourselves from the U.S. There's tons of examples on this where the obvious frontline story, you would have to be absolutely brain dead to go, wait, that doesn't make sense. What do you guys think? Let me know. Today's live show, we're going to talk about an internet apocalypse. We're going to talk about, of course, all of the current events that are going on. We're going to talk about the Wagner Group, and we're going to talk about Japan. We're going to talk about North Korea. Everything's going to be covered. So stick around. This is a live show. Anything can happen. So we'll be right back right after this. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough.
You never going down and I'll never be alone.
All right, what is going on, guys? It's Adam, aka Marf, and just if you are new here, remember you can always go over to marfooglenews.com and you can find today's thumbnail and actually click on it. Once you do, you will find that we have every single article, tweet, video, picture, document there for, of course, a source and a bibliography. So everything is going to be there, including a whole lot more. Once you hit a yellow bar called overflow or web content, that is all the stuff that we could not fit into today's show. So make sure to go down here and check out all of the crazy stuff. This is the stuff that if you talk about in a bar, you might get in a fight. Of course, you could talk about it in school because basically religion and politics is forced into those now. So again, we'll cover all of that later at the very end of the show. Let's bring in my co/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I am doing just fine.
So no surprise that President JB is essentially coming out and saying that he had nothing to do with it. Many people do not believe anything right now. One of the big theories is that somehow NATO or the U.S. or a three-letter agency may have given money to Prigozhin, thinking that he was going to turn on Russia, and essentially Prigozhin called up Vlad and said, hey, these guys are offering me a bunch of money to turn. How about I pretend I do, and then we split the money, and you guys put me in Belarus or something for a couple weeks on Lukashenko's couch. That is, of course, a theory. Not saying that that's true, but of course people are talking about everything. The reason why people are speculating all sorts of things, because the official narrative makes absolutely no sense. Putin is going to go on TV and do this big thing, do a public speech, and basically say, very specific words too. The way that he said it was very vague. Said, don't join in the crimes. Said we've been backstabbed. It just seemed like it was all put out there on purpose. And then when they did, then all of a sudden, a couple hours later, then he's turning around right outside of Moscow. First of all, how did he get to Moscow? Well, people are being told that everybody was cheering him on as he was going down the street. Now, there's videos of people saying, shame, traitor, but you don't know who they're actually talking to. But again, those same videos, almost the same exact angle, or from a different cell phone in the same group, you see people cheering them on and bringing them food. Well, my thought was, nobody really brought up the fact that Google News Aggregator and 5 other telecommunications, at least, were actually shut down or blocked in Russia. So say you are a Russian citizen, you go to your internet, and all of a sudden, you can't access anything. You can't access all of the current news. You can't access any of that. Meanwhile, the rest of the world at that time was saying, oh, Prigozhin turned on Russia. A video went out of him making this speech and everything else. Meanwhile, if you're in Russia, I still have not talked to anybody. Could you guys access all of that? We know that there was a fact that all of that stuff was shut down. So what would you do if Wagner came rolling down the street? Well, as of the day before, he was considered a war hero. All of the Wagner guys were literally on the front lines doing something that most people believe Russians are behind. In fact, a lot of Russians say that they should have been, responding to red lines harder, like that they should be taking out people. And they actually said that Putin looked weak when he didn't do enough to the U.S. and to NATO when they did certain things like satellites, this and that helped. So I just wonder if they're cheering him on, not knowing that he's actually marching through with apparently a few battalions, not all 25,000, and he's heading to Russia to think that he's going to take over and essentially take Shoigu out and replace everything and do a full-on coup. The whole thing does not seem right, and it's so obviously not right, it makes you want to think, is this how they want it to be? The Western narrative, of course, and the Eastern narrative, whatever you want to say the different narratives are here right now, none of them make sense, and I'm thinking that it's on purpose that they don't make sense. So I would not sigh of relief yet, because this is building into something way bigger, and the biggest thing that happens out of this, I don't think we're going to get any warning of. Dex, as far as this goes, like, this thing was just absolutely mind-boggling stupid. And they know it. They know that this doesn't feel right. It's like they purposely did it like this, so nobody would believe it.
Indeed. And getting back to the current president and his statements, I know a lot of people go, oh, it sounds like he's, it's a guilty admission. And quite frankly, if you look at some of the statements he's made at other things, his kid and what's going on there, and that turns around and it's like unproven, you would say, yeah, it sounds like he's just, making another narrative again. But let me just remind you that even if, so I know a lot of us think that, a 3-letter agency was involved and he's just making this statement to sort of say, hey, we're not involved. But even if we were not involved at all, he would still say the same thing. So we have no way of actually knowing if this is true or not, just based on the statement alone. I know it's quick, and I've seen people in comments, and I know everybody else when this came out, a lot of people were saying, oh yeah, like guilty admission, but it doesn't really mean that, because at the end of the day, if we really weren't involved at all, he would still say the exact same thing.
Yeah, but it also, that's not the thing. That's not the reason why, people think he's involved. People thought he was involved no matter what he says. The thing is, what's crazy, if you wanted to take that as a direct relation, I don't think they came this quick out on when the pipe was blown up. Oh, the pipe was the other one. It was like, so when the pipe got hit, right? It's like a story like that was so obvious that it just didn't make sense. It's like, why would somebody burn their own front door down because they were, mad at somebody else? It just didn't make too much sense, right? Or, break their debit card in half and throw it in the garbage and be like, ha, I got you. Wait, now I can't buy things. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. These things, and there's more and more stories like this coming out every single day, and it's mind-boggling. So we are literally swimming through propaganda and absolute filth, and we have to try to wade and figure out how to survive in a world where information has now been the biggest war. So if you guys want to help me tonight and figure this out, then I'd love your help on this, because I don't think anybody has the answer. Military folks started and are still bugging out right now. And you would think after this whole thing went calm that people would go, oh, it was just a false alarm. People aren't. People are still bugging out right now. That's what makes me wonder what the heck is actually going on. Why is this? What is this building up to? Like the last show, what is the actual end game? Over the weekend, many things came out, and none of them really have any of the answers. It just doesn't make sense. By the way, thank you so much for everybody that came in and supported right off the bat. I appreciate you guys. Thank you, Badger1. Thank you for gifting out badges, of course. And then Scooby-Doo-Ray, One on B, Poco Loco, Vault Music. Thank you for the support over on D-Live. Phil Billy, thank you as well. Thank you for modding and for, of course, the ice cream. Appreciate that. And then over on YouTube, thank you, Elizabeth Palinki. I think that was. Elizabeth, thank you, and thank you for subscribing. Justice coming soon, ? Velvet Williams just subscribed. Robert Graham, thank you, and welcome to the Fugel fam. Torscopes 130, All for One. Judy L, Winnie T, John Holiday, And Emily, Sesame, Open, thank you for subscribing. And then Keishalon, Ricky Lynn, BGM 63, and Denise Hahn. Thank you guys for becoming a member. Appreciate it. Thank you, and thank you. All right, and then Dex, do you want to go over? Putin says that the aborted rebellion played into the hands of Russia's enemies.
Well, yeah, and so he made another speech, and it was very short, and he looked, he was in a stern tone. He looked tired. It's like 5-minute television address, but he sought to seek stability. He, as they say, he tried to strike a balance between criticizing the uprising and preventing another crisis, and that's probably more the spin from the Western to say that. But what's interesting is, I guess he still is using the term, traitor. He's still using terminology that sounds very much like, he's not happy with the organizers, right? And he never named Prigozhin's name himself in the actual speech. But he did say they're enemies, and not that Prigozhin is enemies, but he's used the term enemies when he was referring to it. And he said, obviously that they miscalculated. But it's interesting though to see this, because you would have expected at least a little more clarity as to what had happened here, what was going to happen with regards to this person who, in the prior speech he made, was supposed to be charged and going to get 20 years or more in prison, and anyone that joined him would get the same fate. And that didn't necessarily, come across in this update. But at the same time, it also seems like he was not being soft on them either. He was still trying to maintain that stern position against them.
So what I find weird, and I thought this the first speech, he never mentioned Prigozhin by name. He said, we've been backstabbed, he'd been whatever. And that almost makes me think, as part of like how they shut down Google, all that, if somebody did see that, they wouldn't actually know. If you didn't see the Western narrative on this, that he was doing some sort of thing, if you didn't see Prigozhin's actual videos, remember, Russia has the ability to turn into an intranet. They have the ability to disconnect from the rest of the world. If they put out that video, watch the video back, the first speech that was going on during the rebellion. Did people even know that Wagner just did a traitorous move? Like, that's the thing. I don't think we have too many people watching from Russia. I don't know if people can watch us from Russia unless they're using a VPN or something. But if you are in Russia, let me know. Did you know that he was being a traitor during this time? Because there's cell phone videos of him rolling through. Also, the videos that we've seen are not thousands of men. Some say that it was just a few battalions of, maybe a few dozen or a few hundred. And it's like, come on, this is the Russian military. It doesn't matter if nobody was there or they didn't have anything in place. They could freaking take one jet and go foop and just destroy all of them. Like, this never had a chance of taking over. Even if it was 25,000 men, they could literally bring in jets and go right up it. He didn't have any air support. He didn't have nothing. He didn't have all that stuff. They said that they took out a helicopter or something. That seems so fake that one helicopter happened to be taken out. It just doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense here. And maybe it's not supposed to. Now we are so confused, but I would say keep focused on like what is actually happening here. It's like something bigger this is a part of something massive. If there are multiple players, and this definitely opened it in some people's heads, if they're awake, then they might be open to the fact that, yes, everybody's working together. There's some sort of thing going back and forth here. If that's the case, they're working towards something massive, massive. And I sure as heck hope that is not the case, but look at this. Look at this. Look at what is happening right now. That whole Prigozhin thing was absolute bull, whatever it was. Even if I don't think any of the narratives are right. I don't think the guesses or the speculation is right. I think there's something else. And people say that they might have done that to move Prigozhin's troops, as others have said. They say if they wanted to move troops to Belarus, they could just move troops to Belarus. they say, oh, this is to make them look weak. That's what a lot of mainstream media is saying, that this was to make themselves advance the thinking in UKR of that the fact that they're weak. And when you're weak, people will attack you, right? They may think that he is, people may think that JB is weak, but that doesn't mean that they think that his military is weak. Same thing with Putin. The guy, everybody has, the Western narrative has chipped away and made people think that the Russian military is just absolute crap. The thing is, they have spent half of their GDP on military every year. We're talking about half the money that goes to anything in their country goes to their military. They are only a superpower because of their nukes and their military. Everybody says, oh, they're backwards. And even my stepdad said, or father-in-law said that, basically he said that, Putin's got his backwards, broke soldiers. And why would these Prigozhin's guys, Wagner group guys that are getting paid tons of money, then be just absorbed into the military? It doesn't make sense. But then how he said that the regular Russian military are broke and hungry and they can't eat, I don't think that that's true either. I think that's part of the Ganda as well. I think that the military guys maybe if they're on the front line or they get stuck in a city or something, otherwise they're just like every other military. They're eating MREs, they're doing this and that. I don't believe a lot of the things that they're saying about this whole thing. They have advanced weaponry. We know this. And they haven't used a lot of it. They have jets they didn't use until a year into the damn battle. They had tanks that they didn't use until a year into the battle. They had T-90 Terminator tanks that everybody has, before this whole thing started, they were doing simulations of these two tanks going at it, and it is a formidable foe. So I don't know why people think that they're so backwards. They think of Russia like it's just poor old people with pitchforks, and they created a gun out of plastic or something. These guys, we've fought wars with these guys before. This is not something to laugh at. You don't underestimate your enemy, and you certainly don't underestimate the amount of propaganda that's popping up everywhere. Propaganda popping up. You guys get what I mean. What's going on? True Micro. We've got Mike Cognac. We have See Heart Think. Hey, See Here Think. Thank you. Lady L. Rebecca Albertin. Thank you so much. B-Roll Beast. Hey, what's going on, man? And then Brett. We've got Tennessee Mountain Girl. We have, of course, Industrial Crow. How are you doing? And then other Mike, Ilea, and Top Shelf LLC. Thank you for being here. All planned. For the longest time, because of your font, I was saying One Up Shelf. I finally see it. Top Shelf, man. And then Kelly2334, nice to see you. It's nice to see you're in here now. Let's see here. Propagated propaganda. AI propagated propaganda. That would make sense, since it doesn't make sense. It's like they had spelling errors in their simulations or something. All right, and then Prigozhin is back on his soapbox 2 days after an outright mutiny. This wasn't a mutiny, in my opinion. I don't know what the hell this was. It says in a new audio message posted on his Telegram channel Monday, Wagner Private Military Corporation leader Yevgeny Prigozhin, they should put in parentheses, paid actor, was compensated for his time for this medication, saying his mutinous march towards Moscow was a lesson in how to conduct maneuver warfare aimed at preserving his organization. He also expressed regret at, quote, being forced to take down nearly a dozen Russian aircraft in the process. A dozen. I don't believe that. The march showed many things demonstrated before. Prigozhin, according to the translation, War Translated Twitter handle, it said serious security concerns around the country. All military bases and airfields were blocked. If actions on 24th of February of 2022 were done by forces as trained as Wagner, the special operation could have ended in 1 day. This shows the level of organization the Russian army should be following. So do you guys see? They're making it look like they are just completely backwoods, absolutely falling apart. These guys don't know what they're doing. They're a bunch of dummies. Conscripts might be some dummies. They get 6 weeks of training. The regular military train hard. They look at the U.S. and they try to copy us. They train their guys. They literally have spies to try to copy the U.S. So they train them the same. It might not be top shelf. It might not be like the absolute best, but China and Russia have tough soldiers. If you say otherwise, then maybe you're extremely patriotic and you don't want to believe it, or I don't know what to say. Like, these guys are, they're from a place too that is absolutely tough. It's not unpatriotic to not underestimate your foe. These guys are all very, very tough countries. They come from tough. So again, this is I think that this is all part of the Ganda. And Prigozhin, out of everybody, he's been speaking this whole time. They keep quoting him. Personally, I would think that a private military company would be not seen, not heard, out of sight and out of mind. That's how almost every other private military company has been. In fact, most PMCs, you don't know that they were there. They go in there and do clandestine missions that nobody else does because they're basically off the books. Or they're, on the books, but off of the main ones. So if something goes down, you can't directly, blame responsibility on a country. So I think this is all a bunch of BS. Dex, as far as what he said, what did you think?
It certainly supports the idea of showing weakness, and it certainly doesn't look like they came to some sort of kumbaya when he turned around and came back and said, well, I had a great negotiation and everything's going to be fine. And now he's running his mouth again. He even went so far as to say that among his troops, when they were offered or sort of forced to potentially take these contracts in July with the MOD, he says that in his troops, only 1% to 2% would actually join the Russian army. So all of these things he's saying are really just a dig at them, a dig at their capabilities. And again, it supports that idea of, hey, maybe they are trying to paint a picture of weakness, even though they probably aren't weak.
And Sharif for Freedom said something great. If they were doing an actual coup, they wouldn't advertise it. It's common sense. So they're going to tell you in Rostov, like, oh, yeah, we're coming for you. Is this like the steamroller in Austin Powers where he's like 500 feet down the hallway and the guy's just screaming there like, Probably went a little bit too long, but you get the point. It's like, why would they advertise a coup? Why would they tell the whole world? And then they shut down all of the internet or most of the telecommunications in Russia, so nobody in Russia actually knows it's going on. Nobody's talking about that. Why isn't anybody talking about the 5 telecommunications plus Google that was blocked during this event? So yeah, if they see war heroes walking down the street, which that's what it looked like more. Like if you have soldiers rolling down your street and you know that they're on the front line, hell yeah, I'm going to be out there going, thank you guys, thank you for your service. Just like we do. If we have vets walking down the street, if you see 50, 60 military men in outfit, most all of us are going to go out and say, thank you, thank you, thank you, especially during a war with our country. That's probably what they were doing. I don't get it. I don't, the whole thing. It's just absolutely weird. And then, Dex, do you want to talk about the NERC? This is really, really interesting.
Certainly. I think the most important headline that's within this release. So this is the 2022 Summer Reliability Assessment. You can see it visually, but the statement in here is that 2/3 of North America is at risk of energy shortfalls this summer during the periods of extreme demand. In other words, the heat levels. And I know a lot of us are under heat. Matter of fact, we finally had a 90-degree day here. We haven't had one in a while, and it's usually a lot sooner, but the heat is coming. And for many of you, it's already there. I know Texas has gone through it, and now they put out yet another warning. ERCOT put out another warning this week for a peak demand. Of course, the NERC is trying to talk about all the things that they've done, like they added 4 gigawatts of solar resources in ERCOT, which is Texas, and they didn't have a lot of additional capacity in SPP and MISO, which is sort of the Midwest area. But they talk about all the things they've added, but these things that are in yellow, these territories, which are the states plus Ontario and Canada, and then of course the New England area, all of you guys are at risk to lose power. They're saying that it's an elevated risk given the shortages, and we're probably going to have power shortages this summer. So get prepared. And I will say one more thing I'll add to that is that in Texas, we know that one of the problems they've had is the increase of economic growth. And when you think about that, it's people moving into the state. And more so when all those people are coming in because businesses are being created or expanding or factories are built or other investments are being made. All of that is extreme power, it requires a lot more power. So not only have they added a lot of power, they've added a lot of people and a lot of demand to the power. And then now you topple that with the massive heat that's coming through, and they're setting records every week. At least they did last week. They were expected to. They'll probably set it again. And I think last year they set it 11 times, making a new record each time they hit the demand.
Yeah, as far as the, you probably remember too, you can actually go to our website and go up to the very corner. If you do, you can actually go to the search bar, and when you type in the NERC, there's a lot of really interesting stuff we have reported. NERC. When you go to that, you'll find, of course, all of the previous shows that we have done, including today's. That's what's cool about it. We'll do the most relevant in order. And it actually has the former shows that we talked about this, all the way back to the NERC report that talked about how only 9 locations in our grid would need to be shut down to shut the whole thing down. Now with this whole summer reliability thing, this could be an excuse. This could even be a setup in everybody's heads. So when the blackout happens or something, many people may think, oh, it's just the summer outage and there's too much power being used. So this is, again, all of this area is high risk according to them. So at the very least, they're telling us that these are all high risk areas. So most of the states, and especially the West Coast. So again, this is something that everybody should be thinking about. And before we talk about the 5 empty jets returning to Russia from Belarus, real quick, make sure to go get yourself a generator. It doesn't matter if it's solar or gas, but we highly recommend getting yourself an energy solar generator, because as long as you have sun, you will have power. Not only that, you do not have to pay. It's free once you have your panels. Again, you don't have to pay $5 a gallon of gas. You don't have to store it, especially if you're in some sort of apartment or in a place where you cannot store fuels or hazardous gases. So again, go over to marfooglenews.com/energy. Highly recommend the Flex 1500. This is a modular system that can be expanded up to 96 batteries. This you can be able to deal with any kind of power outage, whether it be a couple days or a couple years. This is a really, really great system. It's one of the best as far as manufacturing wise. It's going to be reliable. It's going to run. That's why people go for Energy and other brands like it, because these are the top tier. There's all sorts of generators that you'll see YouTube ads for that are essentially every single part is made in China. These are definitely a whole different quality. They're built like trucks. And of course, some of them, including the Tactical now, is literally built like a truck. It's got a steel reinforced frame, and it's got 1,500-pound latches on it. So even if you drop this thing off the back of a truck, it would stay together. These things are absolutely awesome. They have come in play many times over the last 2 years for me. I've had many power outages, way too many. And every single time, now that we have these, we don't have to worry about going somewhere. We don't have to worry about going to a family member's house to stay. If it's a long-term power outage, we can basically continue business as usual. So again, make sure to go check it out, marfugelnews.com/energy, INERGY. And again, make sure to use the code Marfoogle. Also, the really, really good one for van lifers, for RVers, or for somebody who wants a built-in battery, just one kit that has everything in it, you can get yourself an X2. It actually has a bigger battery than, say, one flex battery, and it's all built in. I guess the only downside is that you can't expand it up to 96, but it is actually a UPS system right off the bat, an uninterrupted power supply, so you can plug your fridge into this into the wall, and then when the power goes out, it will automatically click over to this. And, of course, having it plugged in at all times doesn't affect the battery. That's why UPS is great. So this is a really good unit, too, and it can be dual-linked, so you can actually double the capacity and double the output with the dual-link systems. So make sure to go check it out. It helps our channel, and it gives you a discount. It ends up giving you a big discount at the same time as helping independent news like ourselves. So thank you, and I appreciate everybody that already has done so. Make sure to tell people why it's worth it. You will have to wait for the Flex or the Tactical. Again, the lithium is in high demand and in low supply right now, so the entire world is battling over this. One thing that will also mean, though, is that lithium is going to go up and up and up in price. So I'd highly recommend investing in this earlier, yesterday, rather than tomorrow. All right, and then, so Dex, one thing that gets me about this story is that 5 empty jets returned to Russia from Belarus. When you read that, you go, oh, okay, so they must have went to Belarus and emptied out their stuff. But from what this says is these 5 jets went empty, sat on the ground for a while in Belarus, and then returned to Russia empty. There's something about this doesn't smell right.
Yeah, everybody's going to have to come up with their own idea of what this really means, because the only thing they have from a factual point of view, and even that is always suspect too, because where it's coming from, is the fact that they have the people that watch the transponders and watch the takeoffs and things like that. They watch the movement, so they saw them leave. They saw them land, and then local people that were monitored the planes and said nothing happened. They just sat there. They didn't unload anything. They didn't load anything. Nothing happened. They sat there for a whole day, waiting, and then they flew home. Now, the one speculation, I guess, that's in the article, it's this author's opinion, is that maybe they were sent there because this was all happening when the alleged coup was going on. They were sent there to pick up equipment or pick up resources or pick up troops or whatever, and they were on hold and they came back empty because the whole thing was called off. That's just one theory, but you insert your theories here. This whole thing could just be yet another complete Ganda piece that's just put out there to make us ask these questions and think that there's something weird going on. So but it is kind of odd. These jets left, sat there for a whole day, and then came back empty.
BS. I think they brought something there. It was secretly unloaded under a cover or something. It probably went under, the equivalent of an overpass, some big, huge, one of those covered plane. What do they call those? The hangars. It probably went under the hangar, then came out the other side, and they say, "Oh yeah." Just meanwhile, a bunch of stuff got unloaded or something. What also doesn't make sense about this is that they say, "Oh, it might have been for military contingent." Russia didn't need help, especially after this whole thing is done. It's not like the whole Russian military is being questioned right now. They say that. They say, "Oh, the whole Russian military, everybody that Prigozhin passed, just said, oh, go on through." Almost as if like maybe they didn't even know that they were doing a rebellion in the first place. Oh, yeah, come on in. Grab yourself a tank while you're here. Oh, yeah, I got the keys. They're hanging up on the hook over there. Yeah, just take the tank. For some reason, the Russians are from Fargo now, but you guys get the point. They just let them waltz right through up to Moscow, and then, they stopped them because they moved a bridge slightly off kilter. Yeah, they're going to be stopped then, right? Because apparently they can't swim either. But then the whole Russian military is supposedly not even Russian patriots anymore. They don't want to protect Putin. They're just all done. So that way, at the time, remember, during this few hours, everybody's thinking, oh, the whole military is turning against Putin, and he's going to need other countries. Other countries were chiming in and saying, oh, we'll come in and save them. Oh, we'll help if you need it. They have a huge military. The Prigozhin's private military group that goes in and does stuff. Do you think that they could even take it out, even if they were full strong, the whole thing? No, unless this was the theory for a couple hours that the whole Russian military was going to drop their weapons or go, yeah, we'll roll with you. Let's go together. Let's take him out. We hate him. But that would be assuming that everybody in Russia thinks like what the Russian, the Western narrative says, that everybody hates Putin. The thing about Putin, and we might not agree here in the U.S. or other places, but in Russia, many Russians see him as a straight shooter. He tells it like it is. A lot of, you could compare some of his following. People there in Russia said, well, look at how people, they like Trump. And the reason why they like Trump is because he just says what he thinks. He doesn't do the whole politician speak thing. Now, I don't know if Putin absolutely doesn't do that, but one thing he does is he'll get on and he'll talk with people. They have multiple videos, which might be propaganda, but showing him dealing with regular people, pushing the security away to handshake people. That might be part of his whole ploy to get people to trust him. I don't know. But what I do know is that there's a lot of propaganda that says that people hate Putin in their country. We don't actually know that. There's a lot of people in Russia that were going live and saying that they would absolutely want him to be have stronger reactions to the U.S. So I don't know what's actually going on here, but it definitely does not sit right. What did they just move to Belarus? I wonder. I don't think it was empty when it left. Or when it got there, but they say it was empty when it came back. And now, who's in Belarus? Wagner. So is this story just pointing this out so people obviously put two and two together? Why is this even a story? How do they know that these jets were empty when they got there and when they came back? How do they know any of this? It doesn't even say they have an anonymous source. It says a military monitoring media outlet. Did the military monitoring media outlet, how did they know that they were empty? How did they know that they were empty on their way back? Or did they just follow the damn flight radar? So how are they going to say that they're empty either way? So why is this article coming out? Why is it telling everybody, oh, 5 planes went there and they came back empty? They think about the 4D chess. Us as civilians are going to go, oh, well, Wagner just went there. The planes went there. They were bringing weapons. And they're bringing them for Wagner so they can do something there. I mean, it seems like it would be a common thing to think. But is it true? Nutsack 909. The reason they string the sub that long because JP and Morgan and EpiPen's emails got released and mistakenly 47,000 got erased. Oh, yeah, they got erased. They put Clinton at the wheel. LAPD SWAT, the art of war appear weak when actually strong. Sun Tzu. But people have been talking about the art of war and Sun Tzu for a year. So they must have think tanks that know that every regular person that knows that trick is going to go, oh, yeah, look weak when you're strong. So you very well could be right. Mystery School, thank you for the support. Reverend Brian York, thank you, and thank you for the super chat. And then Rosette Cass, or Koss, thank you so much for becoming a member. And what comes out next? A plan to blow up Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant approved. Situation has never been so severe before. Chief of Defense Intelligence. From what country? From UKR. So UKR's chief of defense is now saying that, oh, he thinks that they have a plan and somehow he knows it's already been approved to blow up the plant. Fantastic Freddy alert. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. I don't know why the Fantastic Freddy alert sounds like that, but you guys know what I'm saying. Dex, this seems really, really sketch. Why are they saying this right now?
Well, I mean, we had Zelensky tell us this last week, but now they're using this terminology that the plan was approved. So I guess that adds another layer of authenticity, or at least that's how we're supposed to to believe this, that there's a layer of authenticity here, that there was a plan and now it's been approved by whoever wrote the plan to move forward with and do this. So the fact that they're telling us about this, no matter who does it, if it happens, it's going to be extremely detrimental to Europe. I mean, whoever does this, it's pretty nasty. It's a real nasty thing to do to not only Russia and Ukraine, because they're both right there in the middle of it, right? And Russia will be hit too. But it's as it spreads, if the radiation moves like they think it will, it'll go up into NATO countries as well. So it'll be a huge event, Chernobyl style.
Or at least that's the picture they're painting. So the picture they're painting is that some Chernobyl event will happen, or possibly will. And this is one thing I do have like some sort of percentage in my brain thinking this might happen. Not to scare you, but because I personally think that if there was a Fantastic Freddy, that would be a pretty good one to get us into a full-fledged war. They don't actually have to bring a plane in there. They could however many ways they could do this. They would do it, and then say that they could declare war from that. Have NATO declare full-on Article 5. I don't know, and the way that they set up, and that bipartisan bill, which they pointed out in that speech with Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal. They actually pointed out that they said the bills that we have done together like this, both sides of the aisle have done in cooperation, and they've had bipartisan support like that, have passed. And if you look back, the previous 3 bills they did this same exact kind of thing with, they had passed. A resolution, not bill, the resolution. So if they do that, if they pass it, that would be officially saying, hey, this is our approval. We want this to happen. It would go a long way. We're the top country. So then, and we have the biggest military out of everybody in NATO. So it would probably get done. What their resolution was is if anything happens, if the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant blows up and anything, radiation goes into NATO, it's instant invocation of Article 5. That's World War III, folks. The thing is every week that something doesn't happen, people get more and more confident that, well, we thought it was, but then it doesn't. This is a build-up to one of the biggest events that any of us could I don't think anybody's even going to comprehend how big this is going to be. Once it's going on, here's the funny thing is everybody's so afraid of this happening once we are in World War III. And many argue, including myself, that we're already in it. Once it really starts going hot, people will adapt, and people will treat it just like the conflict right now. If it's on their front doorstep, they will adapt. They will move. They will leave on all of the buses. We're human beings. We can survive a ton. And that is, I guess, that's one way to look at this whole show and our community and everything else. No matter what happens, it's not the end of the world. And this isn't saying that this is the end of the world. I think this is the start of the new one that we're not going to like. We're going to hate it compared to the world we're living in now, which is bad as it is. They are building the entire infrastructure, the whole planet across. They are building a different planet with a different structure, a different power structure. And this war is going to change everything. And we're going to adapt. And if the war doesn't come here to U.S. soil, then people will watch this just like they watched this war, thinking, oh, it's somewhere else. It's somewhere else. But I'm sure those of you watching from Europe, you're a little bit more worried than that. My worry is that this one will not be somewhere else, that this will hit us. And the most likely scenario is, of course, they screw with our grid. They do a catastrophic cyber event, which they are already warning. All of the signs point us to that. Are they pointing us at that way because it's not going to happen, or are they pointing it to us because in some way they feel bad and they want us to prepare for it? I don't know. I don't think they would ever feel bad for us. Fireflight 1-1. Thank you. Finally get to catch a live. Stay strong, brothers. Keep holding the line and speaking truth. Hey, thank you. Well, that's the thing. We're all going to adapt to this when it actually pops off, which I believe it 100% is. People are going to stop calling people, all of my peers, fear mongers and all of this, and they're going to go, oh, wait, how do I do that? What do I need? What kind of food am I supposed to have? But there won't be any on the shelf. And again, I just want to read one part out of this. The situation has never been as severe as now. According to Davydov, Russia has completed preparations for the terror attack on the ZNPP. When asked whether the Russians decided to blow up the power plant, Davydov said that the plan was entirely drafted and approved. The only element missing is the order to act. Then it can happen in a matter of minutes. It says at the same time, Davydov believes that technical assets can be used to accelerate the disaster. Notice every word is probably important with these because there's little things in there that they throw in. Technical assets can be used to accelerate the disaster. And of course, they said that UK. This is very specific, by the way. If you and if they are right, then they are basically putting out some very specific information. It says that UK intelligence has determined that Russian troops have moved vehicles packed with explosives to 4 of the 6 power units. It is not known whether access to these units was granted to the International Atomic Energy Agency during the visit on June 15th. So just, by the way, if you do believe this, if there's millions of people out there that are reading this and go, oh, holy moly, this is real. That is World War III right there. Understand that. What they are talking about, what the UKR chief of defense minister is saying, he is saying, oh, they're just waiting to declare World War III. Because if they blow up Zaporizhia, NATO will jump in. So we're at serious times, but are we really? Because most of us are going, okay, but watch, it's not going to happen. They've said a lot of things. Preppers go, okay, well, most likely we don't think it will happen, right? Or you think it's going to happen, but say it doesn't. People should get prepared either way. That's called being responsible. China maintains support for Russia after aborted Wagner mutiny. So doesn't surprise me, Dex. What do you think? Obviously, he's still no limits partners. No limits means no limits.
Yeah, they weren't going anywhere. I didn't think any of this would affect their relationship with their allies. If anything, their allies would probably rally to support them and help them if they needed it. But obviously, they didn't need it because it wasn't really it. But yes, that, to the extent of the details here, it's really not a lot of detail here other than the foreign minister had talks in Beijing. They called him in, they talked with him. And of course, Beijing did express their support and saying, hey, we're not changing anything. Nothing's changing. So that's, again, nothing revealing here. But it is a statement from their largest ally, and we need to know at least what they're saying publicly. And it goes on to talk a little bit about the meeting itself, but there wasn't a lot of detail other than they're expressing their support. China's foreign ministry initially said only that Rudenko had exchanged views with China's foreign minister Gin Kang on Sino-Russia relations, as well as the international and regional issues of common concern. So that's about the extent of it.
Thank you, Dex. Sorry you guys didn't catch it, but Dex just saved me there. But the mute wouldn't undo. It's all digital. So thank you, Dex. And then North Korea's first spy satellite has been pulled from the sea after a launch failure. We covered this. If you remember, Japan actually said that they were essentially going to shoot anything that went over their country down. In fact, they're being much more aggressive in the last year than they have been my entire life. because now they're changing their constitution. They're flopping over. Now they're going to be an offensive type country. They're making a whole lot more threats, and they're being a lot more defensive about things. We have all questioned what this satellite was actually doing, what it is, if it is a spy satellite or if it's some sort of weapons platform. Well, when it launched, it didn't go very far. And we don't know what the truth is behind it. Maybe it was most likely a failure on North Korea's part, but it did fail. It could have been sabotage. There's many things it could have been. But South Korean military authorities have salvaged North Korea's first spy satellite after its failed first launch last month, according to media reports. North Korea attempted to launch the satellite on May 31st, but the rocket carrying it suffered an unknown failure and crashed into the sea shortly after liftoff. The satellite, known as Malayong-1, is reported to be designed to take high-resolution images of Earth to provide intelligence for the reclusive country's military. It says pieces of debris believed to the Chaloma Type 1 rocket used for the mission were recovered just days after the attempted launch. Reuters reported on June 15th, South Korea's Yonhap news agency is now reporting that the South Korean military has salvaged, quote, an object believed to be a military reconnaissance satellite. Turns out it's actually just 4 Sprite cans duct taped together, and they put a police light on top of it that's spinning around and a foghorn that goes, woo, 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 which actually sounds a whole lot like that other Fantastic Freddy alert. So we don't know. By the way, just kidding. There was only 3 Sprite cans. It says offering a valuable opportunity to learn about the spacecraft and its planned capabilities. Close to 180 pieces of debris were reported to have landed in the Yellow Sea between China and the Korean Peninsula, according to the report. It says unnamed military sources told Yonhap news agency that the various wreckage has been collected from the site, and the salvage operation and related activities are continuing. The suspected satellite has been transferred to a military research facility in Daejeon, of course, South Korea, for further analysis. So whatever was on it, I wonder what they're going to find. Most likely, if it was something crazy, they're not going to tell civilians about it. So I just wonder if they could make up anything they want. South Korean government could work alongside with the U.S. or something else. They could say that they were putting a weapon. They could say it's a weapon if it wasn't, or they could say it's not a weapon if it was. So again, we don't know. We don't exactly know. And then North Koreans warn of nuclear war of revenge at rallies denouncing the U.S. So one thing is for sure, we don't know a lot of the stuff that comes out of North Korea is true, or if it's their own propaganda, or if it's the world's propaganda about North Korea. But when you're talking about a place like North Korea, it is an absolute magical place in a very disturbing way. As far as the stuff that we do know about North Korea, it's a terrifying place. At least that's what we've been told, right? The leader actually put an anti-air weapon and took out one of his family members because he did something. I don't remember what it was. Called him a traitor or something. But he took an anti-air weapon, one of those guns you see in the movies where somebody's sitting on it and going, pow, pow, pow. He took that to one of his family members, supposedly. So this place is horrible. They have fake grocery stores with cardboard cutouts of fruit to make it look like they have all this stuff. We don't know what is true, what is not. Their people are told that their leader doesn't even use the bathroom because he's a god. If they are treated like that, if they are like this, I would hate to ever see any kind of conflict with North Koreans involved. And essentially, they've been doing these massive rallies, according to this, where thousands and thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, are basically saying war to the U.S., the U.S. must go down. Is this not terrifying? Even this image. A crowd of 120,000 rallied in the streets of Pyongyang, where people shouted slogans vowing a war of revenge to destroy the United States, North Korea state media has claimed. The marches were held across the capital as the country marked the 73rd anniversary of the outbreak of the Korean War, Korean Central News Agency KCNA reported. Photos appeared to show a stadium crowded with people holding placards reading, "The whole U.S. mainland is within our shooting range." You know, normal people just say, like, hell no, we won't go. These people say, the whole U.S. mainland is within our shooting range. That's absolutely horrifying. It says, and the imperialist U.S. is the destroyer of peace. None of the pictures could be independently verified. So if this is true, and this isn't some AI representation, and this is some hack, and whatever else, that is absolutely terrifying. It says Sunday's anniversary came amid concerns Pyongyang could soon conduct another launch of its first military spy satellite to boost monitoring of U.S. military activities after its first attempt ended in failure on May 31st. North Korea now had the strongest absolute weapon to punish the U.S. imperialists, and the Avengers on this land are burning with the indomitable will to revenge the enemy. This is why we've pointed out, if any of this is true, there's the back of our heads, we're thinking about EMP. Fractional orbital bombardment system, a super EMP weapon. We know for a fact that Russia gave them a super EMP. So if they do have this, this is why we've been talking about EMP shields for now 2 years. We did a whole show on this, and we talked to some very, very, very important people on this one. And of course, if you haven't seen some of my peers' videos, we were going to have Peter Pry on our show. Unfortunately, he passed too soon. But if you've talked to some of his coworkers who are still doing, circuits now, trying to tell people about this and trying to warn people, you better hope that this is all just fluff. Because right now, North Korea has now teamed up with Russia, with China. He's been talking to leaders around the world. And I think North Korea could be used as like the tip of the spear because they're already a hermit country and totally separated. Dex, what did you think when you saw those pictures? Do you think they're AI or something, or if those are real?
My first reaction is a lot of them they look like they have a lot of bokeh or whatever you would refer where they take it in what you would say on an iPhone is portrait mode, where it's blurred out in the background. And so part of me says, I get the artistic style of that type of photography, but in an event like this where you're trying to demonstrate a lot of people, you would probably want that full, I don't know if I'm using the right term, depth of focus, where you can see the entire scene of people, as opposed to about 4 or 5 people deep, it goes blurry, especially like one of these pictures they had of the kids all holding their fists up, and they're all wearing white shirts and red ties. If when you guys go look at the article, you'll see the different pictures that are there. But that just taking a look at that, you just sort of gotta go, yeah, that could be, you don't know what's in the background because it's all gets blurry. You don't know if it's just a big AI or even a graphic artist could easily repeat a lot of that and just put some blur to it and make it appear that way. So yeah, I don't know. We don't know if this is real. That city has 2.87 million people in it. It's estimated back in 2016. I think the country has 25 million. So if 100,000 showed up, could they get that many to show up? Probably. All they could do is offer them extra food, I think, and they would probably all do whatever they're told. That's it's pretty rough over there. At least that's the picture they paint. It's certainly not Mai Tais and everybody sitting around on the beach having a good time. So
raise your fist if you want a loaf of bread. Okay, say cheese. Well, we don't actually have cheese. We just have bread. I get what you're saying. As somebody who does photography, if it's in the sun, it's bright. The shadows looks like it could be 6 o'clock. It's not noon. No, I don't. Yeah, no, it looks like 1 or 2 o'clock by the shadows, because the under their necks is the sun, right? So it's 1 or 2, 3 mid-afternoon, and if that is the case, and you don't see any of the shadows of the signs, so it would be kind of facing down, right? The shadows are underneath all of the arms. the reason I say that is because it would be a bright sunny day, which if you were a photographer, you would actually turn down the bokeh because you would open up, you would have to. If you have a lot of bokeh, if you have your lens wide open at say 2.8 or 1.4, that's what effect that does. You would have to have some sort of filter on your camera. Any camera that has this bokeh has a nice lens on it. So you would have to have a filter on it to darken it so you could open up that wide to make it look like that. But again, most photographers do take, even if there is a million people, they don't want you to see a million people. They're having you focus on it. Any photographer, especially here, they do the same exact thing. But you are right. All of these are blurry. This could be the last Super Bowl for all we know. But at the same time, this is how they would take a picture. They would not, especially if the signs are over here, they would take tons of these pictures. The other picture, you can't really tell. I mean, this looks like an AI bald guy. This almost looks like a video game, like a scene out of something. But this actually does look like a wide angle, like a 16 millimeter angle lens. I'm sure the 17 folks are looking at that and going, oh. As far as it just seems like something big is brewing. That much I think.
Right. And Adam, real quick on the timing of this, mind you, we've covered a couple of stories in the last week that were negative coming out of NK, like the attacking of the police officers in the streets across the country, not just an isolated event. Like this was becoming commonplace. And I cannot remember the other story, but there's been these sort of negative pictures painted of NK. So for them to then come out, and sort of counter that with this type of propaganda would make sense too, just based on timing.
I see a lot of people. Janet, Baron Saturday, Aberration says, looks fake picture. Well, the thing is also when you take any picture and you transfer it over to computer, or if you're dealing with it, if it's low res and you're doing a lot of pictures, it also won't be that good quality. There are a couple parts on there, but I also see that with 16 millimeter photos. When it's distorted around the sides, it at least looks like a real lens. So AI could possibly do that too. But here's the thing. Nobody believes pictures anymore at all. Nobody believes any pictures. And it's really sad where we have gotten, where 20, 30 years ago, this would have been like, holy crap. Now, people don't believe any picture. Nothing. And the thing is the more we do that, the more the government's going to go, oh, well, now you can't believe anything. So now we need digital ID on every single human being and check their liveness. That's not my word. That's the DHS, Department of Homeland Security's word. They're going to have logins and sign-ins and add it to social media where they check the liveness of somebody to make sure that they're not AI or a bot, which is just another way to trace and track. So we might get our wish. I would make sure you have extra food. Of course, again, for all of those places around the world that have none, we are lucky in a lot of ways in most places in the world. If you want to get 3 months of freeze-dried food that will last 25 plus years, you definitely go over to marfooglenews.com/prep. This is through My Patriot Supply. It's all freeze-dried in Mylar bags and then sealed into buckets. So then you can either bury it, put it in your basement, put it at your bug-out spot. Whatever you want to do with it is up to you. But the great part is it doesn't take up a lot of space because it is freeze-dried. They remove all of the water and moisture out of it, which shrinks it down in size. And then when you add water, it all comes back to life. In 2052, you could pop this open, rip it up, put some water in it, cook it, and you have yourself a meal. That's the great part. In 25 years, I cannot imagine where inflation will go. But even in 3 or 4 years, in the last 3 years, freeze-dried food has now tripled in price since the beginning of CV and that whole 2019 business. It has now tripled in price. So if somebody would have bought it 3 years ago, they would still have 22 years left on the shelf, and they wouldn't be paying 3 times the price. So if you do get it today, you can kind of go by that formula. You can guarantee that in 10 years, it's going to be way more expensive, and you'll still have 15 years left on the clock. So again, these are really, really great. I would highly recommend looking into the meat bucket too. But that means you have a month of food for 3 people, a month and a half for 2 people, or 3 months for 1 person. So you can break it up however you want, or you can get multiple. DHS actually recommends that you have 6 months to a year worth of food. Obviously, they put out their scary threat in 2018. But if you can't do that, you can definitely get smaller packages too. You can actually get 72-hour kits. You can get all sorts of different kits. Go over to marfooglenews.com/prep. And thank you guys. It not only gets you a huge $200 discount, but it also helps our channel at the same time. There's also other stuff like the Alexa Pure Pro, radios, anti-radiation, first aid, medical, survival books. They have it all. So make sure to go check that out. Top tab of the page will have all of the other stuff. All right, and then new laser communication system arrives at NASA for the Artemis II moon mission. I know I can feel the eyes rolling right now. NASA's new moon spacecraft is getting a next-generation communication system. The Orion capsule, undergoing preparations for the crewed Artemis II mission at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, recently received an essential piece of mission hardware. A laser communication module called the Artemis II Optical Communication System, or OTO, which looks like a little face there, was delivered to KSC for integration with the Orion ahead of the round-the-moon Artemis II mission, which is expected to launch near the end of 2024. O2O uses laser technology to beam messages with data rates far greater than conventional radio transmissions and will vastly improve the speed and types of data transfers that the Artemis II astronauts can send back to Earth. O2O was developed at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland with help from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT's, Lincoln Laboratory. The project was funded under NASA's Space Communications and Navigation, or SCAN, program, which has completed successful laser communication demonstrations on multiple missions, including the Laser Communications Relay Demonstration, LCRD, the Terabyte Infrared Delivery, T-Bird, or the mission in 2022. In addition, sending the integrated LCRD low Earth orbit user modem and amplifier terminal, which I believe that's similar to 56K, only in space, laser communication related to the International Space Station later this year. What's funny is they're sending new stuff to the ISS, but I thought that was like pretty much on its last leg. They say at 260 megabits per second, O2O is capable of sending down 4K high-definition video from the moon. O2O project manager Steve Horowitz said in June 13th NASA statement. So I wonder if they're hitting up what's his face that did who is the gentleman that everybody thinks helped with the moon landing, the guy, the Clockwork Orange guy. Do you remember?
Stanley Kubrick.
Stanley Kubrick. I wonder now they're going to have to work really hard to do it in 4K. What's crazy is a lot of people have their doubts about the previous landing. One thing that always gets me is that we didn't go for 30 years. Most people, it totally boggles their minds because we stopped going before even the huge advancements in computers. The computer that ran the lunar lander, that same computer is now the size of the chip that's in your birthday card that you open up and says happy birthday. That thing, when you open up a birthday card, that is the craziest fact to me. The little computer chip inside of that card that opens up and says happy birthday, that is as powerful as the lunar lander computer in the late 60s. So it doesn't make any sense. We've had this advanced stuff for all this time and we didn't go back to the moon. Or the other theory that people have is that they've been up there for years, but the public trips, those will start now. Because who knows, maybe for 30 years they've just been building another home for rich people. when they're going down to see the Titanic, they're actually going to an island to launch off to the moon, and we're about to be hit with a huge asteroid, and we're all going to perish. Who knows? Top Shelf says, let's play U.S. Don't Get Tragic B-Day gift on the 4th. Oh, so Top Shelf, did you notice how they kept mentioning 4th of July in that speech? Dex, you know what I'm talking about with the Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal, how they said that they would invoke.
Yeah, they told everybody on July 4th, pay attention. This is a time for you to think about, this. And they kept referring to that day. I don't think how many times they referred to it, but they brought that date up. It was like the only date they brought up. And they brought it up and said, you need to be thinking about this then.
Thinking about World War III, essentially, on July 4th. Yeah, kind of freaky. As far as the Artemis mission, if this is really happening and they're going up to the moon, obviously it's something very, very cool. Humans back to the moon, or for the first time, wherever you're at, or it's just going around the block. Who knows? It is something cool to think about. Dex, go ahead.
I was just going to say this. Artemis mission aside, this technology they're talking about of lasers, I think we talked about it last week too, when we were talking about the cables being cut, as this was another mechanism that they're talking about being able to create backbones of network transfers using laser light. So yeah, it's the second time this has come up.
They're doing it from mountain to mountain, right?
Yeah, basically mountain to mountain. And then of course they could do it satellite to satellite. That was the other thing, was to put a broadband connection amongst all the satellites that wasn't using radio or microwave. It was using laser light because it would be faster and larger bandwidth.
Wasn't it China that had it on one of their tall mountains and did it to another mountain? Or was it the U.S. that did the laser?
I don't know about the laser. I know we covered, and I almost got confused with this. I thought it was the power. Remember the power sending up in space from a satellite? We did it from building to building in California. It might have been Pasadena, wherever those geeks are. But yeah, I don't know about the laser from building to building, but I do know they did the power transfer.
And then do you want to cover the cleanup after the Yellowstone River? The train derailed into Yellowstone River.
So yeah, this story didn't get much coverage over the weekend. It happened over the weekend because everybody was sort of enamored with what was going on with Putin and Prigozhin. But there was apparently a big derailment into the Yellowstone River. And when it happened, it was reported that the train was carrying a lot of hazardous material. So a lot of people were concerned, rightfully so. So they're doing the cleanup. From what I understand at this point, at least what's being reported, of course, that is all subject to what information they want to put out there, that there wasn't any significant problems with contamination in the water. I think one of the trains had like liquid asphalt or molten sulfur and asphalt, and then the other ones had some more hazardous material, but they didn't actually fall off. They were still on the rail. What they don't know, and this is the interesting part, is did the bridge collapse causing the train to derail, or did the train derail causing the bridge to collapse? But nonetheless, it all fell into not all, but a big chunk of it fell into the river, and it could have been another major catastrophe, especially if a few of those cars back that didn't actually fall in had fallen in and opened up. They were carrying a lot of unhealthy material that you really wouldn't want exposed into a river and then going downstream and exposing everyone else. So fortunately they were able to get those cars out, and they're still cleaning up the mess and still investigating the river to make sure nothing is contaminating it.
And it looks like they do have a possible suspect for this crime, but he is currently, it looks like his schedule shows him doing a Marlboro ad. Is that right? Yeah. Wait, that's Kevin Costner from Yellowstone. That was, what was that? Who was that in chat? That was, what's his face? Said, yeah, Kevin Costner did it. Gosh dang it. Now I forgot. Last warning. There we go. When I see the name again, I'll give you credit. That was pretty funny. Andros Okia says, wow, 3 helicopters just flew over. We have been having crazy helicopters. I actually tweeted on a few days ago. It's probably a week now. But the West Seattle Post actually posted, and I wasn't the only one that saw this. There was crazy government helicopters flying all over the place. One literally was flying like 100 feet off the ground, just flying all over. It went all over West Seattle. It went the south end. It went over a Walmart at one time. I mean, this thing was super low. It wasn't a cop thing. I don't think it was a drill. The same day, we had 3 Apaches, and the local, one of the local on-duty guys I talked to said that it was actually a public visit, that some general was getting some sort of tour. And it's funny because the last time I saw Apaches in West Seattle was a general or somebody really high up getting a tour. And I just think, like, they spend all this money to fly a general around so you can go, oh, yeah, that's pretty. It's just crazy. I mean, hours. And the thing I tweeted shows the flight radar. It was just, it looked like spaghetti. It was just nuts. And this has been going on all over the place. And they want you to think, oh, everything's okay. It's all a drill. They do drills all the time during summer. They do. But they don't do what they're doing right now. That's my belief. They are going nuts. They are drilling for the future war. That's my opinion, and I would love for you to change my mind. And then packages from China are surging into the United States. Some say $800 duty-free limit was a mistake. It says conservatives anxious to counter America's leading economic adversary have their sights set on a top trade priority for labor unions and progressives cracking down on the deluge of duty-free packages coming in from China. The changing political dynamic could have major ramifications for e-commerce businesses and consumers importing products from China valued at less than $800. It also could add to the growing tensions between the countries. Under current U.S. laws, most imports valued at less than $800 enter duty-free into the United States as long as they are packaged and addressed to individual buyers. It's referred to as the de minimis rule. Efforts to lower the threshold amount or exclude certain countries altogether from duty-free treatment are set to become a major trade fight in the Congress. It says de minimis has become a proxy for all sorts of anxieties as it relates to China and other trade-related challenges, said John Drake, a vice president at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. It says the rule speeds the pace of commerce and lowers costs for consumers. It also allows U.S. Customs and Border Protection to focus on its resources on the bigger ticket items that generate more tariff revenue for the federal government. The volume of the products coming into the U.S. that benefit the de minimis rules has soared in recent years. Congress raised the U.S. government's threshold from the expedited duty-free treatment from 200 to 800 in 2016. The volume of such imports has since risen from about 220 million packages that year to 720 million in 2021, and 685 million last year, with China accounting for about 60%. So, Dex, one thing is, so I always thought of duty-free as in the airport, you buy it and you can take it back with you. Are they saying that it's duty-free if you, is it technically duty-free if somebody bought something from China and had it shipped to themselves?
As long as it's addressed to you individually and not going through a company, then yes. So if you wanted to buy an item under $800 from a company in China, and they address it to you, ship it to you, it comes in duty-free.
So have you ever heard of the company Temu? Have you seen this company called Temu?
The name sounds familiar, but it's not ringing a complete bell.
So Temu, some believe it's a scam. I've never done it. But there was something that popped up and it was only sold on Temu. And then I looked up a YouTube video and it's all China. And there's actually another company, Something Holdings owns Temu, and it owns another company. And the thing is people were reviewing all these items like fake AirPods. They were straight up copies of AirPods. And a lot of people said, like, you for $20 or $10 or $8, $7, you could get literally exact copies of the AirPods, and they worked great. They said, oh, they were actually good. But the downside, this other company, not Temu, but owned by the same group, was essentially had backdoors and all this stuff, and it was recording keystrokes, and it was doing stuff like if you got a tablet from there for $15, it was recording all your stuff. And they're now getting shut down for it. Now, Temu, owned by the same holdings company, has not been shut down, but they're supposedly, I don't want to say they are, but because who knows who the heck owns it, but they say that supposedly they're being investigated for the same thing. But this Temu thing, the prices are absurd, and it's all stuff from China, and there's two sides of the argument. People go, oh, you're supporting the CCP by going and buying from that website. The other side goes, well, are you buying from Amazon? They'll go, yeah. Well, 99% of the stuff from Amazon is literally going from China, and Amazon's the middleman. Temu's whole thing is that there is no middleman. It's like you ordering from China. I just wonder if the duty-free thing has gone up because of that from people ordering like sites like Temu. The one thing is what I've seen time and time again, and after I watched a few videos on this, there's a video that this guy did a video on it. He does cricket, which is like they cut arts and crafts stuff up or something. And he said all of the comments were saying, well, I don't care. I'm broke right now and I've got to get this. And if I'm going to get a fake one, I don't care. Everybody said that they're doing it. So there's probably whole groups and whole niches that do things where they can get, it was like $65. They got all of this equipment and it was from this website, right? They have literally direct access this stuff to everybody, and now people are even skipping Amazon. So it's like now people are just, the economy's so bad that people are like, screw it, we're just going to go support China. This is bad. And you can't really tell other people to not to. People are broke. But you have to realize what these big companies are supporting. If they're a big Chinese company, they have a deal with the CCP and they're directly supporting a communist nation. So, but I just wonder if that has something to do with it, the whole duty-free thing, and now it's $800. Now they do big ticket items. They literally do, well, I mean, big ticket to me is like, $300, $400, $500. Big equipment. They do 3D printers that are normally $3,000. Who knows? You might get some, it's like 2D printer. They just give you a regular printer, but they go, the third D is in the box, and there's like literally a 3D D. You're like, cool. No wonder it's so cheap. The third D's on us. Sorry.
Adam, the other thing, is the time it takes to ship this stuff. So, a lot of times you have to be careful if you're shopping online. I know, like, if you're buying on eBay or even on Amazon, if you don't pay attention and you're buying from a third party, but they are actually shipping from China because they want to, avoid these duty taxes. So they can do that as opposed to shipping an entire container over here and then redistributing it, which would be quick and easy. But then as all of that duty tax gets placed on it. So they'll sell direct and just put it on the slow boat, and you'll order something. It takes like 30 days to get to your house. It's kind of annoying.
Well, what the last thing I got, I've gotten parts and stuff. There were certain male to female adapters for the cords for the studio that there's no Radio Shack anymore. When you order this stuff, it's going through Amazon and it's going straight from China. But like the USB-A to USB, it was a weird USB micro. It was a female to male adapter. All of those kind of things come from China. And since there's no Radio Shack, there's no American business that has their stuff anymore. It's like, it's great. I miss Radio Shack so much. Internet apocalypse. What is a solar storm and how can it impact the internet on Earth? So there's actually, first of all, we have talked about this for years. We are in solar cycle 25. Many people will not think about this until mainstream media. Not even this. I'm talking about when it really starts. When we have some solar events happening, of course, we are lucky enough to have our friend Wages World, who's not only my friend, but a wonderful mod. he has a big channel, and he actually tracks all of the solar events, and we will actually have him pretty soon here. But as far as the solar events that are happening, we are in solar cycle 25. We are waiting on a CME. A CME will happen, a coronal mass ejection from the sun. A Carrington level event will happen. It's just a matter of time before one pops off on the sun and is aimed directly at Earth. Now, the reason why many people believe that this may happen soon is because we are in solar cycle 25, and out of solar cycle 25, they last anywhere from, 9 to 12 years, most often like 10 or 11, that they've watched all these cycles, and this cycle has cycles inside of cycles. So after, say, 8 of them, there will be a certain marker that they've seen every 8 cycles. Or they've seen it every 4 cycles, and they'll see this tiny event, and then it's followed by a big event. Well, they say that solar cycle 25 has this certain pattern that they believe is going to be extra unpredictable, possible strong CMEs, strong events all across the board. It's not guaranteed, though, because it's still a science that nobody has exactly mastered. But there's a lot of signs to say that we're going to have something big like that. Well, think about how our society is now set up. People on Earth can be left without the internet for several months as a new possibility of internet apocalypse has emerged due to a solar storm. Recently, for the first time, NASA's Parker Solar Probe completed a groundbreaking mission to travel through the solar winds of space. The goal of the mission was to prevent the charged particles from hindering the internet signals on Earth. With first such research being conducted in 2021, scientists have long warned of the possibility of a solar storm impacting the planet with an internet apocalypse. They have also warned that one such event could take place in the next decade and would obstruct the infrastructure that carried the internet providers. It says PSP was launched 5 years ago, and it took the trajectory close to the sun's surface where the solar wind begins. It says solar storms are simply the atmospheric impacts felt on Earth due to the winds that generate near the sun. The storms are caused due to the solar flares and coronal mass ejections, which release a stream of electromagnetic field towards the Earth. In other words, it consists of a stream of charged particles which beam from the outermost atmosphere of the sun, called corona. NASA has started that solar activity appears to be following a cycle of 11 years at its peak. Solar storms could occur multiple times in a day. However, at other times, they can take place less than once a week. But these solar storms have the potential to cause geometric storms, which can hinder the satellite signals, radio communications, internet, and even electrical power grids. Back in 2011, a powerful solar storm reportedly disrupted the radio communications in southern regions of China. In 1859, auroras were seen across the world due to a solar storm, and the phenomenon was called the Carrington event. At this time, if a similar power storm was generated, it could potentially lead to an internet apocalypse, resulting in a worldwide blackout, which would significantly be damaging to communication across the globe. It can also hinder the supply chain for essential items such as food, water, medicines, among several other products. Now, mind you, we have a lot of new people here that have just gotten into all of this niche and to prep and to truth and everything. The one thing is out of all the things we debate, there's a few items on the docket that we think absolutely are going to happen. Cascadia subduction zone to the West Coast. That I have personally spoken to many of the scientists behind that, including Chris Goldfinger, one of the lead seismologists who's all over the place. He has his own TED Talk. He has his own New York Times or New Yorker article about it. And he actually is now out on a boat in Oregon right now studying all of the fault lines off the Cascadia subduction zone. And they are all warning us about the Cascadia. We are also being warned about these solar events. These solar events, it's going to be worse than just losing the internet. It could possibly knock down our whole grid. And there's a lot of folks that are especially just getting into this that they don't even know about it. They don't hear about it. And honestly, unless you really, really follow closely, you're not going to. Many people don't know why 2024 and 2025 have so many predictions around them, but some believe it's because of a possible pole shift, or a possible Carrington-level event. Now, we've actually barely missed a couple in the last few decades, and or they missed us. And if they did hit us, I mean, we're talking about something where our entire planet could go dark, or at least huge swaths of it. And if that happens, there's really not much of a way to get it back up very quickly. In fact, they said if our whole grid goes down, it could take anywhere from 12 to 18 months, even 24 months to get our grid up and going. What's crazy is most people actually consider the internet going down as the big disaster. Well, it actually is. Now the internet is how most of our infrastructure works. So this is something that many people really need to get into and really study. Dex, as far as the and then we had another story here, which we kind of piled into one. Can you also compile the other story that you were talking about earlier?
You're talking about the solar maximum being
Yes.
sooner than they expected. Okay,
Yes.
so hand in hand with this is the fact that they're talking about this cycle, but they're actually saying the maximum of the cycle. They're now predicting it's going to peak and hit sooner than they originally expected. So I think the original date was 2024, I believe it was 2025 for the peak on the cycle. And they're actually suggesting that given all of the activity that they've been seeing and studying over the past, beginning of this cycle, that it looks like it's going to peak a lot sooner. And that would, mean that we're looking at going into the heightened period of activity. And when you're in that period, that is the most likelihood that things can fire off. Now, mind you, things have to not just erupt on the sun, but they have to erupt and be facing our direction so that it hits us. Obviously, if it's facing any other of the directions around, then it doesn't really affect us. It might affect another planet. It might affect a lot of other things, but it doesn't necessarily affect us directly unless it hits us. So, but the point being is that when you have a greater level of activity and greater level of larger activity, not just smaller activity, but larger activity, then we have a much higher probability of being hit. So that's what they're suggesting. They're saying that the dates that they have been predicting before are actually may need to move up in time a little bit, that they will hit this peak a lot sooner than they were expecting.
And as far as this goes, what's crazy is some thought that this was going to happen. About 2 years ago, they said that there was a weird pattern happening, and they felt like everything was happening sooner than it should. I go back to the Deagle report, which not a lot of people bring up anymore because Deagle, the website went down, then it came back up, then it was different. The Deagle report had this weird thing, and Edwin J. Deagle was a statisticist, I think they call it, and did statistics for the U.S. government. He was under 5 presidents, almost 50 years or 40-something years working for 5 different presidents. And he was their stats. He did the stats for everything. And they actually looked at him. They war gamed with him. Like he was the war game. They would give him the information. He would take up information for everything and be like, this is what we think is going to happen. For whatever reason, they believed all of a sudden, almost all of the allied countries were going to lose millions. In fact, it showed by 2025, the U.S. would mysteriously lose 2/3 of its population. Same with almost all of our allies. Meanwhile, all of our enemies actually went up slightly in population. So their population went up like normal. Ours dropped to 100 million from something like 376 million people. A lot of people pooed it and said, oh, that's just, whatever. That's a conspiracy theory website. The actual Deagle business, the information they were using was studies from all over the world, economic information, military information. They put everything into this. And before, those 5 other presidents would have made their decisions based on Edwin J. Deagle's stuff. Now, Edwin J. Deagle passed away, and then all of a sudden his website got taken down. Then things got altered. Then they put up some sort of warning about it and a disclaimer. There are things that I believe that the people above us know that we don't. And if you consider that, then you think about all of the events that have happened in the last few years, why people are trying to go off planet or put seeds into vaults or send DNA to the moon or to build bunkers. It feels like something is coming. The solar events, if one of these pops off, we're going to be put back to the Dark Ages. So my word of advice is to prepare for something like this. Again, lots of crazy stuff there. Mind you, we've been telling you guys for a year about the EMP shield. Go to our website if you do want to protect yourself against something like this, marfooglenews.com/EMP. Again, that device can be wired into your cars, your trucks, pretty much any device. So again, this is our recommendation. If you do want to protect yourself against any kind of solar event, don't tell us we didn't tell you about this, because this is the same device that DHS, DOD, and the DEMSO team have been doing. The DEMSO team is officially helping protect the Texas grid with this stuff. So again, go check it out. Not only you'll be supporting our channel, but you'll also be protecting yourself. The more people that are protected, the less that the U.S. will have a problem. I don't know what their rules are for international. I know they do Canada and other places, but I'd highly recommend checking, because I'm sure Europe is on that same list of threats. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. But as far as the solar events, if you have followed this over the last 5 years, it's getting crazier and crazier. So we need to have Wages World on very soon and have him talk about some of the crazy stuff that's been going on. It's been getting nuts. All right, and then let's see here. Yep. Thank you for subscribing. Serotonin, thank you. Billingsley, thank you so much for subscribing. I can't read your name. I'm sorry. Another one. I can't even begin to pronounce that. But thank you for subscribing. You'll probably know who I'm talking about, because I can't pronounce your name or names or something. But thank you. I do appreciate you. Speaking of thanking people, make sure to go thank the mods right now. Let's drop an M in the chat for our wonderful mods. Thank you, Beer Juice. Surreal Paradox, thank you for being here. And then thank you, Beer Juice, for gifting out badges to pretty much everybody over there. Thank you, Hip Hop Junkie. Thank you, Cognitable, says, I have been slacking. Priscilla R, thank you. Kimbria, Kelly2334, thank you for multiple support over there. And then Animated Adventures, thank you. Scooby-Doo writes, says, I'm back. Had to pick up Beer's Glitter. Beer's Glitter. And then Messy, thank you. And then sorry I'm late. I had to loofah my stretch marks. Thank you, Beer Juice. Thank you. Dex, let's go over the web only.
There's lots going on. So head over, if you're new here, head over to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, or open up the show notes link down below in the description. It'll take you to this web page that we create for every show. It's got all of the news that we just covered, all of the articles, the links, the sources, the PDF documents, anything that may be there, like that NERC graphical package that they had put together. That's there. So once you get to this orange bar, it says overflow. That's where the rest of the story is. So lots happening. Everything else that's been going on in that we didn't cover, we couldn't cover, or sometimes in the political space, we don't like to get everybody all riled up over who's doing what in the politics. But we do have additional coverage of what happened or what allegedly has happened with Russia. So that, if you want to see some additional articles on that for more information, it is there. Excuse me. There's some theories, like Condoleezza Rice has come out with her theory on it. We've got some of what they're saying are Moscow residents and their views on it. So if you're kind of curious, you can see that again, I don't think it's not scientific data. It's not, or, statistically valid data. It's just going to be whatever a reporter grabbed. But that's all there, including some other stuff going on with the conflict in UKR. So all of that's there. Then, of course, we do have some political coverage that's here as well. And also, they've got some new images of that Chinese spy balloon, but the images were over in China or in Asia areas. So that's kind of interesting, but it's, we're all sick of the balloon story. I don't know why they want to keep bringing that up, but it allows, I guess, somebody caught those pictures back in time and found them. So the president's son's information is they're talking about that. At least Jim Jordan is. Of course, there's the T-Man stuff going on with his cases. All of that is there, and including some DeSantis updates to cover the political spectrum. So the rest of the story, folks, if you want it, it's there. We put it together for you every night. Just click on that link down below in the show notes. It's called in the description. It's called the show notes link, or go to our website, marfooglenews.com. Click on the thumbnail for the show and scroll down. You'll find the rest of the story.
And somehow the president's approval rating is highest since August. When asked about it, he said, all right, thank you guys. Love ya. Thank you so much, Ilea. Thank you to all of the mods in the chat. Thank you, everybody that has stopped by tonight. And make sure to also go over to marfooglenews.com/friends. You can find all of our wonderful mods and all of our wonderful friends. Bones Chance, CJ Blaze, Jammer1, Lisa R. Hall, Rip Curl Radius, RGL, Ilea, Trinity, and Wages. Alrighty, have a good night. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It's now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.
I'm way on back on down. I sail me on way. Everybody here and now. I got it down. I be the fight. I bring it back and up and down. I feel believe by my side. Oh, now by now be you. I poco oko loco. Everyone know. I say poco loco, Bobby. Look where I see John Appleby and the Death Danish girl, a Danish girl. Danish, 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 Danish girl. Danish, 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 Danish girl. Danish.